This is our second annual Playful City USA Leaders Summit, and we are thrilled to have you in the Playful City of Chicago. And frankly, it's fitting that we're in Chicago because last year we named Mayor Rahm Emanuel as America's most playful mayor because we saw him doing things in the city of Chicago that frankly inspired us as an organization. Chicago has committed to the ambitious goal of giving every family and child to live within 7 minutes of a park or a playground. They've extended the school day to ensure that kids get recess, PE, and art every single day. And frankly, they are working in tandem with the private sector and community groups to ensure that the play needs of all Chicagoans are met in all neighborhoods. And what we're here to talk about is really how we can get other cities to both continue doing that and frankly do even more. Because at KaBOOM, our priority is to bring balanced and active play into the daily lives of all children, especially the 16 million kids living in poverty. We are now working with the growing network of city leaders and play advocates to address this issue on the scale that it exists. Because frankly, playgrounds are nice, but if kids aren't playing, they're not getting to the playground at all. Leaders like Mayor Emanuel and all of those assembled here today know that kids need play to thrive. Play is how kids build muscles, unleash their imaginations, solve problems, learn to collaborate, make friends, and build strong bonds. Before I go any further, I'd really like to take a moment to recognize the 12 Playful City USA team cities who were here. And the team city means that they actually came with a group of people from their city so that they can actually start to tackle a challenge through play and solve it on the scale it exists. So to Bloomington, Indiana, Brownsville, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, Durham, North Carolina, Memphis, Tennessee, Ottawa, Kansas, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Providence, Rhode Island, San Francisco, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Washington, D.C., and York, Pennsylvania. Of the 213 Playful cities out there across the United States, these are the 12 that have really raised their hand and said, we want to go further, faster. And over the next couple of days, we're going to learn what your big idea is. We're going to try to iterate on it and help you make it better. And then we're going to try to even go further and be accountable to actually putting it in place back into our communities. We also have some special guests, including first and foremost, the generous support of the Humana Foundation and Corporation, and a delegation of a great team of people led by Virginia, Marvin, Greg, Remy, and Todd, along with their CEO, who I'll have the honor of introducing in a couple of moments. We have some mayors that have traveled from their city to learn some of the innovations, and I'd like to specifically thank Linda Reed of Ottawa, Kansas, Parker Wiseman of Sparksville, Mississippi, Kim Bracey of York, Pennsylvania, and Robert Mayer of New Roads, Louisiana, for being here with us. Finally, as far as thanks, I think we should give a huge round of applause to this institution that we're in. It would have been easier for us to wake up in our hotel and roll out to a conference room to meet and discuss what we're going to talk about. For KaBOOM, it was important to actually go into the community because that's where we do our work and where we're trying to do more of our work. So to Emil and Antonio, who founded Blue 1647, this institution, thank you for hosting us. Thank you for doing what you're doing in this community and being a spark that's lighting a fire around redevelopment. So let's all give them a round of applause. The important part about this summit is that it's about different sectors coming together to solve some of the toughest challenges. And the challenges require not just new resources, but bigger thinking. Levels of crime, obesity, toxic stress, the challenges relative to economic development. But if we could use play as an equalizer to solve those, we can build healthier kids, healthier families, and healthier communities. Across the United States and in cities and communities are engaged in a fierce contest for the future. They are competing for residents. And many cities have done a great job for making their municipalities appealing to the creative class. However, as cities continue to compete for residents to bolster the tax base and attract new businesses, forward-thinking leaders like you recognize that you need to think not just about the 20-somethings and empty nesters. You need to both keep and but retain families for sustainability. Families of all income levels who breathe energy and enterprise into our neighborhoods. Everyone wants to live in a safe community with ample jobs. In addition, families want great schools and abundant opportunities to be together as a family. These child-friendly, family-friendly spaces that are filled with play is the competitive advantage, we believe, that will not just attract residents to your city, but retain them so that they want to stay. Again, our hosts here in Chicago and their local businesses in some of the toughest neighborhoods started these people spots. And these people spots increased bike traffic, increased foot traffic, which made life happening on the street, but more importantly, increased business by 10 to 20%. So there was an economic imperative to it as well. In a recent survey of residents we conducted in our cities, respondents indicated that playability would favorably influence their decision to live in a city at 58%. More than walking at only 49%, and more than biking at 24%. People prioritize play over walking and biking, which is a phenomenal asset that we can build on. But the reality is all three need to be strong for families and communities to strive. 75%, interestingly, said that they would choose to work and live in a city that has play opportunities for their children when compared to a city that does not. And an overwhelming 85% of the respondents said that play is crucial to building and developing family-friendly cities. Not just cities, but family-friendly cities. So just imagine this economic imperative that play can bring to our communities. We know that this isn't an easy task. We know that these team cities are stepping up to the challenge. You know that it will take big ideas, cross-sector partnerships, and collective will to hold ourselves accountable to these bold citywide goals. We won't be successful, though, if these ideas don't actually meet the needs of kids and their caregivers. All of us seemingly think play is nice, but see playgrounds empty some of the time. So what's going on? What is it really going to take to get kids to play? Last year, to try to answer this question, with support from the Mattel Children's Foundation, we partnered with Insight Strategy Group, a leader in kid-focused market research, to understand what do kids want. And here's what we actually heard. Kids want challenge. If it's too easy, they won't keep their interest. A couple years ago, I happened to be in the UK, and I saw an 8-year-old girl on a rolling log that was about 40 feet long and 6 inches off the ground. And I was sitting on the bench next to this grandmother. And I would watch this girl go from one end and fall off, and then try to do it again, and then come around to the other side and see if it was easier from there. I asked her grandmother, how long had this been happening? And she said, we've been here every day for 3 months. Developing mastery over time is a critical part of child development. And it's not just the physical challenge about making it across the log or doing the monkey bars. It's the mental challenge. One of the key reasons we think that kids love electronics is leveling up. Once you hit a milestone, the game gets more difficult and you get a new challenge. So as we think about what we need to do in building playgrounds and play everywhere, we have to incorporate what kids told us, which is challenge. Second thing kids told us is They love creativity, their imagination, playing make-believe, making up games. And interestingly, tied to the economic imperative, in a survey of Fortune 500 CEOs, the number one skill needed for success in the 21st century economy was imagination and creativity. So there's a connection to what we should be providing for kids and what kids are going to need to actually be able to thrive in business in the 21st century. Finally, kids told us that they crave connection. Kids wanted to think about the ideal dream play space as not one swing, but a social swing, where 5 or 6 kids could use it at a time. They want the opportunity both to play with their friends, and they want and crave the connection to do it like that grandmother who took their child to the park every day for 3 months. Having a playground doesn't necessarily mean that kids will play more if there is not a caring, engaged adult encouraging and enabling them to play. So parents, what do parents and caregivers want? So we looked at some behavioral research, and there's something in your packet which we're really excited about, because we can build more playgrounds and better playgrounds, but if we're not addressing the barriers to why they're not playing, we're not solving the problem. So with support of the Annie Casey Foundation, we partnered with Ideas 42, partly because what we've seen over a decade is that parents, 90%, have told us that play is important. Over a decade, that number hasn't changed, but kids are actually still playing less and actually not more. So Ideas 42 looked for the little things that are often overlooked, but are key drivers of the behavior change. So here's what we learned from Ideas 42. Adults want convenience. If the opportunity to play is not easy to get to, it won't happen. And once you're there, it won't last without other conveniences. Seemingly simple things like, is there a bathroom to use? Caregivers also want comfort, like seating and shade, which is pretty obvious. Third, the adults craved also a sense of community. 80% of adults agree that a playful city creates a more close-knit community. And you can tell a play space is well used if there are toys and games left at this play space that belongs to all kids. If you see a community of families that share belongings, you can bet there is also a shared sense of responsibility. And if you see your peers are playing with their kids, it is much more likely that you will as well. So with Insight Strategy Group and Ideas 42, we now have a better understanding of what kids and caregivers want. It is now up to us, city leaders, to make it easy for kids to get the balanced and active play they need to thrive, which we've coined playability. We turn to the experts once again, the kids. And frankly, what the kids told us was not what we were expecting to hear. It wasn't about the play space. They expected to be able to play everywhere. And we see it in our cities. We know it's true. You see kids not stepping on cracks as they walk down sidewalks and climbing on things they aren't supposed to. Kids are hardwired to play despite the environment we provide to them. As for the behavioral scientists, they told us kids are on to something. If play is seen as a destination, you've created a behavioral barrier that is already hard to overcome. It is no surprise then that big destination playgrounds often cater to the well-off families and to tourists, but do little to get most kids in a community actually playing more. So here are some of our thoughts relative to this that we're going to be talking about over the next 2 days. We need to turn moments of frustration into moments of play. Consider that when a mom is waiting 15 minutes for the bus with her 2 kids, she's doing everything to keep them away from running into traffic. Imagine instead if the bus stop is a mini playground. So we need to ask ourselves over the next couple of days, what do our streets could look like, crosswalks look like, grocery stores look like, laundromats look like, health clinics look like, because this is where our kids are spending a considerable amount of their time. Over 70% of parents wanted to incorporate play into their everyday activities and chores versus the behavioral barrier of actually needing to go to a playground. Second, we need to reclaim public space for the benefit of kids. The iconic urban theorist Jane Jacobs said you can tell the health of a community by the visibility of kids. And we are seeing many encouraging signs in some cities, such as shutting down streets so that families can play together. These play streets is kind of a modern twist on kids in cities, how they used to play in front stoops and back into the streets. We need to build critical mass, like critical mass, where we're putting a twist on biking and enabling kids and families to bike on city streets. But much more is frankly needed at a higher scale. Third, we really need to imagine the town square from a kid's perspective. Another Playful City USA community, Rockville, Maryland, just outside of our hometown, rebuilt their town center. And it was clear that Rockville considered kids and families in its redevelopment. There is no traditional playground. But there's a turf area with big boulders to climb on, a water fountain and a splash pad in the summer, a skating rink in the winter, a stage for performances that include an appeal to all ages and a public library, all within easy access to public transportation and clean public restrooms. And you can tell it's working because you can see tons of kids on it all the time. I'm confident that the 12 cities represented here will go back to their communities and bring playability to life. And in the past few years, we've seen great momentum of cities embracing walking and biking. Following the leads of like Chicago and our hometown of Washington, D.C., there is a domino effect of hundreds of cities now across the country who are taking action to make their communities more walkable and bikeable. However, in too many cities, just like Washington, D.C., only up until recently of the 71 miles of bike lanes, none existed in the highest population of where kids lived, which also included the lowest income ward. We have to make sure that this benefits all kids, not some. So while we want to see a similar domino effect in taking your lead, we also need to make sure that it really does benefit all kids, particularly those growing up in poverty. I'm excited about the conversation that we're going to be having over the next 2 days and the bold ideas. I'm excited about the group that has come together because it's a big task before us. But I think our noble task is to really pause and say, how can we make sure that all kids get the childhood that they deserved filled with play? And I know that by the end of tomorrow, we're going to have more ideas on how to make that happen.